Don't you know that you so wrong, man? You're wrong and here's why. Chris and Greg don't see eye to eye, like none of the time. Robert Covington stinks. I don't care what you think. How is LeBron James the king when he's ruining teams? You're wrong and here's why. Underdog Sports presents. You're wrong and here's why. Underdog Sports presents. Let's go, let's go, let's go.
Welcome to this week's episode of You're Wrong and Here's Why. I'm Chris Horwedel, joined as always by Greg Crone. Gregory, my friend, how are you this week?
I am excellent, Chris. We are on the edge of college football season and all of football season in general.
We are in college football season, Gregory. I don't know if you missed the epic Florida versus Miami matchup this past weekend.
Yeah, week 0. Sure.
Hey, it was a good enough game. I don't know.
Well, Chris, let me tell you.
Oh God, how much money did you lose?
No, God no. I fell asleep around 6:30 on Saturday after a lengthy afternoon of fantasy football drafting and several beverages, and woke up in the fourth quarter to see Florida winning. And then stayed up all night to watch Hawaii beat Arizona.
Gregory was all tuckered out.
I don't know if tuckered out was necessarily what I was, but close enough.
It's a PG-13 show. So
exactly.
For those purposes, you were really sleepy. And hey, because your daughter may listen to this someday. True. Greg's a good guy, and he's never done anything wrong in his life. What did you think of the Hawaii quarterback?
I mean, are you talking about the guy that came in and replaced their starter, or?
I honestly have no idea what happened in the Hawaii game.
Gotcha. Well, Hawaii's actual starter, gentleman's last name is McDonald.
Yeah, Cole McDonald.
He had a really good year last year for Hawaii, and didn't start out super hot in this game. I mean, he was throwing touchdown passes, but he also was peppering in a multitude of interceptions. The fact that Hawaii even won that game is honestly shocking with the amount of turnovers they had in the first half. Arizona's offense was just inept. They should have really kind of blown Hawaii out with the amount of turnovers as Hawaii was driving that they had. But, it's hard to win on island, Chris. I don't know what to tell you.
Truer words have never been spoken. It is, in fact, hard to win on the island. How'd Khalil Tate play?
He was fantastic. I mean, he's unbelievable. Honestly, barring a shoestring tackle at the 1-yard line at the end of regulation, a la Derek Mason, was it Derek Mason for the Titans who got tackled at the 1-yard line?
Oh,
either way.
Yeah, I know where you're at. Derek Mason doesn't sound right, but it probably is.
Sure, or is Kevin Dyson.
There you go. That's because I think Derek Mason might have been a basketball. That Desmond Mason was a basketball player.
Derek Mason definitely played football, I think. Always good to put the definitely and then I think in there.
Derek Mason was a professional football wide receiver. He played for the Tennessee Titans from 1997 to 2004, and then the Baltimore Ravens for 2005 to 2011.
Bingo. So Khalil Tate was outstanding. The scramble at the end of the game, he went like 35 or 40 yards and then got tackled at the 1-yard line as he was trying to go in to tie the game up. That Arizona team is just so tough to watch. He's going to be a lone bright spot, and he's going to put up a ton of numbers, but from an overall standpoint, they are going to be very bad in the Pac-12.
Well, this is interesting. Apparently, I'm just getting my college football news from you days and days after the fact. This is just how I'm going to learn about college football this season, I guess.
Works for me.
So Khalil Tate, huge year as a sophomore. It looked like he was on the cusp of being a breakout superstar. Well, I guess as a second-year player. And the last year, you have new coaching in Arizona, and all of a sudden he goes from 1,400 yards rushing to 224. Looks like they're back to that let him run the ball kind of style here, because I'm seeing 106 yards rushing the first game.
Yeah, I think he was marred by some injuries last year, which didn't help. But if he's back to full strength, he's definitely going to put up some serious numbers, and on the ground especially.
And that's why Greg believes Khalil Tate will be the number 1 overall pick in the 2020 NFL draft. You heard it here first. Who do you think is the number 1 pick in the 2020 draft? If you have to put all of your money on it right now, who's it going to be?
It's going to be Tua. I don't know whether he's necessarily going to deserve it, but that's who it's going to be.
I obviously covered the NFL draft for a very long time. And one thing that we tend to see with those guys who are so highly praised prior to their ability to declare is that they get scrutinized and overanalyzed, and it becomes almost impossible for them to live up to the expectations that are put on them by the national media. They tend to fall off a little bit. I can't remember many instances of the consensus number one pick, the clear-cut superstar guy coming out that next year and, still being the number one pick. So I wouldn't be surprised if, I don't want Justin Herbert, but,
Justine Hebert.
Oh my God. Or Jacob Eason or Jake Fromm or one of those guys comes out of nowhere to be the number one pick.
Yeah, I mean, it'll certainly be interesting either way. I just think that Tua is going to put up such massive numbers this year. The only place that he's going to falter is like combine and measurables and things like that.
Why? Just because they have 3 receivers who might be first-round talents and another guy who will be in the future?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, including Jerry Jeudy. Just,
Very, very easy to put up numbers when you have like the best players in the country around you.
Yeah, I mean, we're not only that, but we're talking about a guy who is potentially going to be the highest-rated wide receiver we've seen in like 5 or 6 years. So not just talented guys, but special talented guys.
Some would say elite talent.
Oh, that's good. But hey, why don't we get to our topics at hand here on the episode this week? We're going to talk about why Greg thinks it's all right to be mad at Andrew Luck, why I think Carli Lloyd shouldn't play in the NFL, and why Clemson will not make the national championship. Let's kick off segment 1. Gregory, tell me why we can be mad at Andrew Luck. It's okay.
I mean, so obviously the biggest news story of the weekend is the, a premature retirement of Andrew Luck. And when I woke up on Saturday evening at 10:30, I looked over at my wife and she said, Andrew Luck retired. I immediately checked the draft board to make sure I did not draft him. Mm-hmm. Thankfully, did not.
Can I just interject that I am concerned about your state of mind where you do not recall what happened 4 hours prior?
I knew I didn't draft him. I was trying to figure out who did. And then I remembered, and it was that weird guy I was talking to you about earlier.
Matt Crone.
He also drafted Lamar Miller. Hilarious. Really rough Saturday for that guy.
Yeah.
But I woke up to the news and then immediately started scouring Twitter and Instagram and checking out all the different news on arguably one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL retiring at 29, 2 weeks before the season starts. And then you get the videos of the Colts fans booing him as he's walking off the field, which I can't fault them. It's a weird immediate reaction at a game. It's not right. You can't boo a guy in that situation.
I haven't even made an argument yet, and I think I've already won with what you've said.
No. I'm just saying. But then the criticism came. The criticism from everybody that's like, oh, it's his choice. It's this and that. Of course it's his choice. Duh, he's a person. But you're also allowed to be upset with him. If you're the Colts and you're a Colts fan and you're going into this season after the year he had last year, coming back from that injury, you're looking at it going, we have a real shot here. You had 2 all-pro rookies last year, one on offense, one on defense. You're prime in a division that's usually mediocre or kind of across the board. You had a real shot, and it's all taken away. So to be mad at Andrew Luck is a perfectly reasonable reaction, regardless of why he retired.
I see. I know that's sort of the purpose of the show, but I do disagree with that. And I like it a lot when we have topics where the two of us are genuinely on opposite sides. Because, every so often you have to take a position for the sake of the show. But I think all 3 of these, we're legitimately on different sides of them. And that's going to make it all the more sweeter for me to win 3-0 once again. But I don't agree with you at all. I don't think that it's okay to be mad at Andrew Luck. I'm going to take a page from noted 21st century philosopher, Phillies infielder Sean Rodriguez. When Sean Rodriguez said that, these Colts fans, they might be a little entitled. And I think that's the case here. It really is. Who are we? Like, who the hell are we that it's okay for us to get mad at a guy for not enduring months and months and potentially years and years, a life of lingering pain for our enjoyment over a 3-hour period on Sundays for 16 weeks. Like, why is it okay for us to get on him and to have this vitriolic hatred towards Andrew Luck and to feel cheated by Andrew Luck because he doesn't want to be a dancing monkey for us anymore? The answer is it's not. He's an adult. He gets to make his own decisions. Now, can you be disappointed in the fact that, he's not there and that if you're a Colts fan, the team isn't going to be as good as you anticipated? Sure. But to be mad at this guy who put his body on the line for this franchise? Absolutely not.
And I completely get that side of it. I understand that, especially in a guy like Luck's case where he has plenty of money, he comes from, a very successful family that clearly has money. His dad's been involved in college athletics and is now the president of the XFL.
Yeah.
Like, I fully understand that. But if you're telling me that, say 3 years from now, the Eagles are still sitting relatively pretty, right? Mm-hmm. We're still sitting there. We're contenders every year. We won the division the year before. And 2 weeks before the season starts, a guy mentions that lingering injuries are the or I guess he really didn't even – honestly, if he came out and said, hey, listen, my leg isn't getting any better. I'm tired of doing this. It's a serious, serious situation that's going to affect me long term. I got to walk away from this. Not, I'm frustrated with the process. I'm frustrated with the process of rehabbing and this and that. That's what I think upset people sort of the most, and the people that got mad at Andrew Luck, which, again, it's a perfectly fine reaction to me. If Carson Wentz retired 3 years from now, prematurely at 28 years old, or at least prematurely in our eyes, in the NFL fans' eyes, 2 weeks before a season where you're poised to potentially be a Super Bowl contender, you can't tell me you wouldn't react the same way and be disappointed and angry at him.
I would absolutely be disappointed at him, and I would understand that, if he's retiring, that means some of the injuries that we've already seen are going to be degenerative, are going to be lasting, and I would not be mad at that. I would be thoroughly disappointed. I would be sad. I would be upset that the Eagles won't be as good as I expected. But I wouldn't be upset because this guy isn't going to go play a very violent game with serious injuries and putting his entire life at risk. And let's not kid ourselves. With football, that's what it is. We saw the stuff from LaRon McClain last week, and I've gotten to the point where I genuinely believe if I have a child, and for this argument's sake, we'll call it a male child, teaser for the next segment, I wouldn't let him play football. I really don't think I would let him play football. It's too risky. You're putting your body in jeopardy every single time you step on the field. And I know how bad my back hurts bad enough already. I couldn't even imagine how bad it would hurt if I was the quarterback of an NFL franchise and taking hits from 330-pound defensive linemen on a regular.
Sure, but really that's not necessarily my argument. Isn't that Andrew Luck shouldn't have retired? It's okay as a fan to be angry. I'm fine with Andrew Luck retiring. I'd be fine with Carson Wentz retiring if it was for health reasons. That's perfectly understandable. But for any other fan base or any other group of people to judge Colts fans for being angry at Andrew Luck for retiring 2 weeks before the season starts, get out of here. You would all react the same way. Every single giant group of fans gets lumped in together, but for some reason, whenever something happens, it's the same situation as when a player gets hurt and everybody cheers. People run to Twitter and they're like, ooh, look at these fans, they're awful. But every single fan, every single stadium, every single sport, they all do the same thing. So to judge anyone for getting angry at Andrew Luck for retiring it's crap. I hate it. I think you have the absolute right to be angry at him.
I don't know.
Now, it shouldn't be a lasting hatred because he kept your franchise relevant. He kept your franchise relevant after you lost Peyton Manning to an injury-plagued situation and you wanted to move on, you wanted to get younger. Andrew Luck kept the Colts in there. So that's fine. You have to understand that anger can't be a long-lasting thing. But an immediate angry reaction to it, absolutely understandable.
I'm never going to agree with this. I don't think anger is acceptable in that as a response for this. Being upset, being disappointed, that's fine. But being angry at the guy for not wanting to take a beating for your enjoyment is not okay. That is entitlement. And I'm not even making a Sean Rodriguez joke here. That's what it is. It's entitlement, and it's not being considerate of another human being. It's showing a lack of capacity to put yourself in someone else's footsteps, to put yourself in someone else's shoes. And it's not okay to be angry. It's just not.
Every single NFL player knows what the consequences can be when you play football.
Yeah, and then it happens, and it's real. It's not real until it happens.
Of course, and that's with anything in life. But unfortunately, those consequences exist before you ever step on the field. You mentioned the LeRon McClain thing. I mean, you play fullback at a high level. You play fullback at a high level through, college. In the NFL, your entire position is to go out there and hit people. I think about offensive linemen. You think about guys like, Mike Webster from the Steelers, who had, famously major brain issues toward the end of his career or towards the end of his life. Tons of different linebackers.
Look at Junior Seau
comes to mind. I mean, this is a real situation. It's not, obviously. Brain injuries aside, any injury in football can happen on any play, but I think you don't owe anything to the fans. That's not what it is. But when you're this close to the season, there's this type of excitement. To not expect some sort of anger from some people or some segment of the fans is delusional, I think.
Anger's a petty response to me.
Of course it is, but it's perfect. It's definitely somewhat valid.
I've got you from valid to somewhat valid, so I'm already doing my job. But the one thing I will say when we're talking about like the LeRon McClains and the Junior Seaus and the Mike Websters and all of those guys, Webster a little bit less so, but like CTE wasn't a buzzword when these guys came into the league. Like they weren't fully aware of the risk, and that's what scares me a little bit. Is that we're only now figuring out what's happening to these guys who are putting their bodies at risk on every single play. We're only now figuring out what the long-lasting ramifications of this stuff actually is. So, I think it's naive to think we know everything. What don't we know?
But then here's my question. You see guys like Troy Aikman, right? Mm-hmm. He's arguably the top color man in NFL football. Him and Tony Romo are probably 1 and 2, right? Aikman retired early due to concussion issues. He seems like he's all there. Is it something that we're missing? How much of the CTE is obviously a problem, but I need real percentages. I need real studies on this as we keep going. As the generation before this ages and continues to get there, I need more issues, because you see guys, you see Hall of Famers, you see old timers who are out there and they don't have these issues. Or is it just because they're lucky? Like, what is it?
Well, again, this is a new field. We don't fully understand this, but I do think there's a degree of dumb luck. This is it's a game of Russian roulette that we're playing. It's like how a person could die. You could die the first time you try some illegal substance, or you could do it your entire life and live a reasonably normal life, assuming a lot of other factors. It's completely Russian roulette, and I think you're going down a very, very, very dangerous road by suggesting.
If you're the NFL?
No, if you're Greg Crone, by suggesting that maybe it's not as serious as we think it is.
No, I'm not saying
that's the argument you're making.
Serious, but I want to see. I would like to.
You want to see Junior Seau's brain because after he shoots himself in the stomach to save his brain, so it can be there for medical testing.
That's not what I'm saying. But
yeah,
what I'm saying,
LeRon McClain, don't be a jerk, LeRon. You should, whenever your time comes, send your brain to Greg Crone. He wants to look at it.
I'm not going to be able to analyze anything. Send it to the correct people. That's my point. I need to know. Yes, exactly. I need to know more on this, because honestly, you're right. If this stuff, which is obviously an unbelievably important and tragic thing that the NFL is going to have to seriously deal with is the case, you could potentially look at a situation where 10 to 20 years from now, the NFL is a shell of what it actually is now.
Well, you could argue that it's already there. This is not the same game it was 20 years ago. Let me ask you this question.
I'm talking about from a participation standpoint.
Absolutely. Like
a player pool standpoint.
Football's already losing people to other sports. There's no question about that. Let me ask you this. If, let's just say in a hypothetical world where your life was better and you were luckier and your second child was a boy instead of a girl.
Thank you.
I'm just kidding. I'm very happy for you. But let's say joking aside that you have another child, that it's a boy. You played football in high school. Would you let your kid play football?
So I would have them follow the same path that I did. I didn't play football growing up. I didn't play football before I reached 9th grade. And I don't have many lingering effects from football. One, didn't play a lot, wasn't that good. But two, from the times that I was in games and did have experiences, there's definitely times, even in practice, where you get that bell ringing feeling. It wasn't very often in my case, but it certainly can occur. But I think because I wasn't sustaining those types of hits in, from when I was, in 85-pound ball at the age of 8, all the way up through the age of, 18 or 19 whenever you graduate high school, I think it's different. I think you're more developed at 15, 16 when you start to really get into, the high school and that sort of thing. That's the path that I would prefer if I were to have a boy. Now, I'd have to convince my wife.
Right.
We'll see. But I don't think there's a necessity to have kids in that young playing full out tackle football for a number of reasons. One, kids aren't coordinated. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, you can go in awkwardly, and you can teach kids 1,000 times how to do something the right way, form tackling, head up tackling, that sort of thing. Kids are going to run in there with their head down and just try to crack people every time. It's just going to happen. And I think that leads to it. I think, that can be a precursor as your brain's developing. You're rattling it around in there. It can't be good.
No, but you're giving a worst-case example of this. You're talking about the idiots who aren't taking the coaching seriously and aren't taking the learning of the technique seriously. But I think what those younger leagues sort of serve a purpose for is to teach kids how to play football before there is that giant risk of injury. Because, there is a much lower percentage chance of a kid suffering a major injury as a 7-year-old or an 8-year-old or whatever. Because the speed isn't there, the velocity isn't there, the physicality isn't there. That's when, and I'm not suggesting that young, but when you're young is when you're supposed to learn how to actually play the game. I feel like the risk of injury grows substantially if you just say, okay, well, here you go. You're a somewhat physically developed high school freshman. Go run as fast as you can into other people now, knowing nothing about it.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely see your point there, but I also think there's a wear and tear aspect that happens, and there's one of the examples I hear a lot when we talk about basketball, how it's become sort of a year-round sport, is guys at a much younger age suffering serious injuries because their bodies are just, breaking down earlier. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And it's because they're playing basketball 12 months out of the year. It's AAU, it's this, it's that, school ball, it's everything. They're constantly out there playing, so by the time they hit 18, 19 years old, you've basically played thousands of games, you've thousands of practices, and eventually you break down. I think it's something similar in football. You start taking those hits early, and those continue, and they can build up.
I don't argue that there's a cumulative effect. I just don't know that it's not outweighed by actually understanding how to play the game rather than jumping in as a freshman in high school.
Sure, but I was able to learn and able to get starts as I continued to move up the ranks of junior varsity and varsity football. Again, not the best football player in the world. And
don't sell yourself short,
it may have been different if I had started in 5th grade and actually went to the tryouts that I was getting ready for instead of sticking to soccer. Who knows?
And we all know you had an incredible soccer career.
Best goalie you could ever imagine. Region 10 All-Star, baby.
I've got nothing on that. That's just, when you start talking about that stuff, you just trigger PTSD in me from all the CYO stuff. So.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well,
CYO sports.
Oh, my. Yeah. Just threw me off my game there, Gregory. But unfortunately, it was too little, too late for you. And I remain undefeated, and we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. Guys, we find ourselves smack dab in the middle of August, and that means football is here. I wanted to let you know that Yahoo Fantasy has introduced a new fantasy football game called Best Ball that lets you in on the action now. So with Best Ball, you draft your fantasy football team, and that's it. You really don't need to do another thing once you've drafted your team. Each week, the top scoring players at each position on your roster automatically count towards your weekly score. I don't know about you, but if you're anything like me, you're going to save a lot of time obsessing over your lineups. Forget about that time commitment with other drafts. There's no waiver wire, there's no trades, no adding or dropping players, no having to make those tough decisions on who to sit or who to start. You get to focus on the best part of fantasy football, the draft. Are you tired of doing mock drafts for your fantasy team and having other players just drop out early or not finish? Well, free Best Ball leagues give you the most accurate ADP or average draft position of players before the season starts. For you lunatics, you wild fantasy men out there who just can't get enough fantasy football but don't really want to manage all of those teams all season, you can draft up to 50 best ball teams. That is more teams that are actually in the NFL. Play for free or play for cash, but most importantly, get to drafting with Yahoo Fantasy Best Ball. Join a league today at yahoo.com/bestball, BESTBALL, coming soon to the Yahoo Fantasy app. All right, Greg, we're back, and I know you've been looking forward to this since I mentioned this topic to you. I've been looking forward to having this conversation with you, and that is surrounding all of the Carli Lloyd hoopla that's going on right now.
Yes.
I stand firmly behind the fact that she shouldn't be playing in the NFL, and I'm going to tell you why. And look, I want to preface everything I'm going to say here with I am all for gender equality. There should be more of it, not less. This isn't an issue of gender equality. This isn't an issue of female opportunity or female empowerment or any of that. This is a safety issue first and foremost. We're talking about a game that is, as we talked about in the last segment, violent by its nature. And the argument that I hear so many people say is, well, she's just going to be a kicker. Kickers they're not really football players and they don't really get hurt. It's garbage. It's a garbage reason. And it's a garbage excuse. Football is a game where anything can happen on any given play. There is no way to guarantee that Carli Lloyd does not find herself in a situation with the football in her hands. Maybe it's a bad snap. Maybe, there's a fumble. Maybe something happens. It's a game where things happen all the time. We can't guarantee she's not going to have the ball. We also can't guarantee her safety at that point. And that's the thing that terrifies me. We look at some of these kickers, and the other argument that I hear a lot is like, well, kickers are small. Yeah, that's true. We look at a guy like Martin Gramatica, who was, one of the smaller kickers we've had recently. 5'8", 175 pounds. Carli Lloyd is 5'7", 141 pounds. 141 pounds. That's it. There's no scenario where she will not get hurt if she comes up against, a 300-pound NFL defensive lineman. There's just none. This is a safety issue for me. That's all it is.
Of course it is. Of course, when you're talking about the regular season and things like that. But the fact that we couldn't just trot Carli Lloyd out there for a preseason game, give her an opportunity, let her kick in front of, an actual line, actual people coming at her. As long as the dude from the Giants in 2002 isn't snapping, we should have a perfect snap, perfect hold situation. I don't see an issue with having her kick. It's actually hilarious how badly this topic has has put people's pretzels in a brain, or brain in a pretzel. God, that whole my own saying put my
pretzel
my
in a brain. Yes,
brain
I
in
understand.
a pretzel. It's been a long day. Now, but I mean, we've had conversations amongst my group of friends regarding this topic and the hoopla surrounding it, and how, how would she actually react in a real game? Making one in practice isn't a big deal. Mm-hmm. Let's find out. Let's find out if she could actually kick in a real game. I understand there's obviously the issue of her getting hit. If there were a broken play or something like that, I fully get that. Physically, she can obviously not stand up in stature to guys in the NFL. There's been college female kickers at the D1 level. Colorado comes to mind from way back in the day. There have been female kickers that have hit the college ranks. Giving her a shot in a preseason game doesn't affect anyone. One kick or an extra point, literally anything, just to see if she can do it. Because then it's going to, and now that might lead to a different debate, whether it's if she makes it, misses it, those types of things, and that's neither here nor there. But I don't see it really affecting anyone if she goes out there, kicks a field goal, and we're just done with it. Nobody's going to actually sign her. Nobody's going to actually give her a contract. Hey, come be our kicker in a real regular season game. It's not going to happen. And I don't care. She can make 100 out of 100. It's just not. It's not going to happen. But letting her go out there in a preseason game, full padded up, take a snap, kick, boom. It's not like she's the kickoff specialist. She's not running down the field breaking the wedge. I mean, it's nothing.
That's patronizing, though. I feel like it's patronizing for you to say, okay, you can have this, but even if you're good, you can't have what the guys can have in this situation.
But somebody might sign her. I'm not going to be the one that signs her because I don't want to run the risk of her getting injured.
Well, that's my
team.
issue too. And look, I don't have any doubt in my mind that Carli Lloyd or Alex Morgan or Megan Rapone or Julie Ertz or any of the incredibly talented female women's soccer players, a little redundant there, but women's soccer players mechanically could probably kick field goals in the NFL. With varying degrees of success, just like there's varying degrees of success with every field goal kicker in the NFL right now. It just puts everyone in such a horrible position when you start doing stuff like this. So it has to go one of two ways. Either it's a stunt and you're patronizing, or it's an opportunity. And then we have to look at the real issues.
I don't necessarily know if it's patronizing.
How isn't it? Isn't it? You can, even if you're good enough, you can't have it. How is that not patronizing?
She wants an opportunity to go out there and kick and prove that she can do it. Go ahead. It doesn't mean you're guaranteed to do anything. It doesn't mean you're guaranteed a contract. Isn't it patronizing to have a fourth preseason game with 53 guys or 85 guys who are dressed out there? Just, hey, go out there. Maybe you'll make a practice squad, but in reality, you really have no chance of making this team. All those guys playing tonight in the Eagles-Jets game and in all the games across the NFL right now, 85 to 95% of those guys will never sniff an NFL roster. Is that not patronizing?
I don't think it's that high.
Are the owners not just making money on these guys? They're charging full price for tickets to preseason games? Is that not patronizing to those guys?
No, it's not, because you know why? First of all, I don't think that the number is as high as you say it is. We'll look at that, but I don't think it's 85 to 90%. Is it a flip of a coin? Is it a little bit higher than that? Probably. But guess what? These guys are being afforded an opportunity to play professional football for a living. And this is an audition to do that. With Lloyd, it's not. With Lloyd, she's a dancing monkey in effect. She's look what we did. We're so progressive. But you don't really have an opportunity to get the job. You just get to go out. It'll be a fun story. A lot of people will cover it, and then, we'll wave you the next week. It's not a real chance. It's a dancing monkey situation.
But that's what football is. Football is entertainment. I mean, everything is entertainment.
This isn't wrestling. This isn't just stage.
Of course, it's not a fixed pre-written thing. Of course, it's not. But everybody does these kinds of things all the time, in all walks of life, in all sports, in television. They do things to get people to pay attention and look at it.
This reeks of minor league baseball games. That kind of BS stunts. not the National Football League, something we're supposed to take seriously, something that is sacred to a lot of people, something that people spend a lifetime trying to get into that league. And to say, oh, well, yeah, this is a fun story and we're going to lead off Sports Center if we do it. Sure, well, you can come out and play, but I don't care if you hit 2 65-yard field goals. You have no real chance of making this team.
Again, no real chance of making this team isn't necessarily a guarantee. You don't know that one of these owners isn't going to say, hey, look, she actually made, 4 out of 4 40-plus yard field goals in the preseason. We should keep her. She's better than Cody Parkey.
You can't. The liabilities are ridiculous, and the problems that come along with it are huge, too. Does she need her own locker room? What special accommodations are needed? Like this, it changes everything about the team.
But if you're on the team, it shouldn't matter.
No, it shouldn't matter, but it's going to.
Of course it is. Of course it is, because that's the way the world works, but it shouldn't.
The other question about this that I find really, really interesting is a gender equality question. And that is, and it comes up every so often. We hear one of these stories every 5 or 10 years. Okay, Carli Lloyd can play football. Why can't Cody Parkey go play women's volleyball or be on the PGA Tour? Or
I don't know if he's a good setter.
You know what I mean. Like,
I know what you mean.
Why does the guy not have the chance to go compete with the girls now?
But now you're going to get into a biological issue and
you're getting into a biological issue with a girl playing a guy's sport too, and putting aside the size, putting aside the talent, all of those issues, even if they are exactly the same, we know physiologically speaking, women are 5 to 10 more times more likely to tear their ACL than males are. So Carli Lloyd is inherently at a much greater risk of injury than the typical male. And also, the thing that people don't point out in this story, she is quote unquote training for the 2020 season. She will be a 38-year-old rookie.
Morton Anderson kicked at like age 49.
Oh, okay. So I think that the way to argue any point is to give maybe the greatest exception to any rule.
Gary Anderson kicked well into his 40s.
Wayne Gretzky
don't have to be 22. Janikowski just retired at 40+. 38-year-old rookie. Chris Coast was a 29-year-old rookie or whatever, or 35-year-old rookie.
Yeah, and he was out of the league by the time he was 37. Yeah, I said he was out of the league by the time he was 37.
Sure, because he wasn't that good at baseball. This is a different story.
We don't know that it's a different story for the record.
Listen, I don't see an issue with letting her kick. If she can kick and she can contribute to the team in a way that isn't going to put her at risk, the problem that you're going to run into is what you said before, is if the ball somehow ends up in her hands. Because one, if you're the guy on D, actually, it might be the team's best. That might be the team's best offense.
It's not, and you know it. And I talked to Mario. I know what you're going to say.
Who's going to take her out?
I talked to Mario about this, and I'm going to defer to him over us, a guy who has played football for a living, on the NFL show yesterday. We talked about this, and he said, when it comes down to it, this is a job. And if your job is to stop that person, you're going to. And there may even be a little bit more animosity towards somebody like her because she's taking a spot away from a guy.
Yeah, I will certainly defer to his opinion on it then.
Like, it's a bad situation in every
scenario. What put us in this situation? The media put us in this situation.
I'll tell you who put us in this situation. It's that damn Carli Lloyd and her damn being so talented at kicking a ball.
No, it's Doug Peterson. Get him out of town.
Yeah, and the Ravens. That holder gave her too good a hold.
For real, it is the media. The media builds this narrative around a fun publicity thing. And then all of a sudden, there's think pieces and articles about, could she actually kick in the NFL? Could she do this? Could she do that? And sure, from a physical talent standpoint, I'm sure she could kick a field goal in the NFL. There's no doubt in my mind that Carli Lloyd could line up from 43 yards out and eliminate the Eagles from the playoffs. That absolutely could be the case. I love taking shots at Bears fans consistently about that. But there's no doubt about it. She could certainly do it. So giving her a chance to do it, I don't see a huge issue with it. There are certainly caveats and certainly variables that could make it go very, very, very poorly. Well, but that's a risk you're going. If you're Carli Lloyd, you have to know those risks going in, and that those could be a possibility.
Yeah, but people make stupid decisions because of their own bravado.
Of course.
The other real issue that comes into play here is it. Let's say you are a team who wants to have Carli Lloyd play in a regular season NFL game. In this scenario, your roster construction has to be different because you 100% need to have a kickoff specialist as well. Because let's say that punter gets hurt. Well, all of a sudden she is now punting, she is now kicking off and kicking. And that can't happen.
Hey, you just wheel a linebacker out there. The
Mark
Eagles used
Semino.
to do it if Akers got hurt. That's exactly who I was thinking. But no, well, if the rosters get expanded at the next CBA and you go from 53-man or whoever's active on game day, that could change things as well. So there's a lot of moving pieces here that could affect this.
Yeah, but none of those things are reality at this point.
At this current moment, you are correct.
I'll take the win. All right,
Not
we'll take a quick
overall.
break. We'll be right back. Hey guys, it's Chris Horwardell with Underdog Sports, and this one's going to be a little bit different. Usually we ask you to support the show by buying the products from our great advertisers. But right now, our mission's a little bit more important. We're going to ask you to support humanity, to support decency, and to support your fellow man. For patients with blood cancers like leukemia and lymphoma and other life-threatening diseases, it isn't a death sentence. A cure does exist. And that is where Be The Match comes in. Be The Match is a community of donors, volunteers, healthcare professionals, and researchers who deliver cures by helping patients get the life-saving marrow or umbilical cord transplant they need. Here's a couple of facts for you. Every 3 minutes, someone is diagnosed with blood cancer, and 70% of patients don't have a fully matched donor within their family. Be The Match facilitates more and more marrow and cord blood transfers every year, including nearly 6,100 in 2017 and around 86,000 transplants since 1987. You can join the Be The Match registry in person or online by going to bethematch.org. To join, people just need to meet some basic age and health guidelines and be willing to donate to a patient in need. The registration involves completing a simple health history form and giving a swab of cheek cells. It really couldn't be much easier. The reality is that only about 1 in 430 US Be The Match registry members end up donating. So it's not like you're locking yourself into something right now. All you're really doing by registering is to give someone else a fighting chance at living. You know, I gave you a couple other facts earlier on, but maybe the most important one I'm going to give you today is this. Statistics say there's a good chance that you or someone you know has had their families impacted by cancer. I guess my intention here isn't to ask you to do this. What I really want to ask you is, why wouldn't you? What's stopping you from taking a quick test that could save someone else's life? Head over to bethematch.org for more information. All right, Gregory, we are back for a third and final segment and our third and final shot for you to put a W on the board this week. Tell me why Clemson will not make the national championship.
So here's my biggest issue with Clemson coming into the season is everybody loves the hype. Obviously, Trevor Lawrence is arguably the best quarterback in the country, or he's, number 1A or 1B.
He's won. He's won with a bullet.
I would assume that, based off of everything I've seen, I would take him 1 over anybody else, including Tua at Miami. Or Alabama. God, Miami on the brain for some reason. But my bigger issue was with Clemson on the defensive side of the ball. They lost a gigantic front line in Christian Wilkins, Cleveland Farrell, and Dexter Lawrence. I mean, those are 3... not irreplaceable, but almost. Actually, you know what, honestly, probably irreplaceable guys. You're talking about just behemoths on the D-line that set the tone for that defense for the last 4 years. That defense is going to look very different. Will Clemson still win the ACC? Sure. Will Clemson still probably make the playoff? Yes. Will they probably go undefeated until then? Absolutely. But I think once you get into that playoff round and that semifinal game, I don't care how good Trevor Lawrence is, their defense is going to have to stack up. And I think losing those 3 guys up front is going to really, really hurt their chances in some of these major games.
Of course it's going to hurt their chances. It never helps to lose a couple of first-round picks and another super talented player. And by the way, a fourth defensive lineman who very easily could have been drafted last year. But they're far from sparsely talented on the defensive side of the ball. New guys are stepping up, and you have players like A.J. Terrell and the absolutely incredible Isaiah Simmons in the secondary. So it's just the strength of that defense is going to switch, right? It's not going to be so defensive line heavy. It's not going to be this historically talented defensive line. Instead, it's an incredibly talented defensive backfield. And that's going to be good enough when you're talking about Trevor Lawrence and T. Higgins and Travis Etienne and guys like that. This offense is going to be beyond explosive. All the defense has to do is slow other teams down, and Clemson's going to coast to a national championship.
I mean, I really, that's going to be fine for the ACC regular season. I think that the ACC is nowhere near what it was a mere, 4 or 5 years ago when you had Florida State really up there kicking. It's, to me, as good as Dabo is and as good as Trevor Lawrence is, once you're also talking about a revenge factor. If Clemson meets up with Alabama in that first game, I mean, you want to talk about Nick Saban having to go for the jugular and Tua looking to redeem himself after last year's embarrassment in the national championship game. I mean, people are going to be out for blood against Clemson. There's no doubt about it.
So what?
You have to deal with that.
Yeah, you have that, but that's just reality of being the best, biggest guy on the block, man. Everybody's always coming at you. These guys are more than good enough to get past any and all of that. Look, so I'm not super, I know that we're going to see, actually, I guess just about to kick off the Clemson Georgia Tech game today. Shouldn't be much of a football game. Texas A&M Clemson will be fun next week. But there's just, I don't know, Syracuse.
Their defense worries me. I mean, obviously, you talk about losing those first three guys, but you also lost Trayvon Mullen. You also lost Austin Bryant. These are guys that all contributed to that defense. I get that they have very good recruiting classes. I get that once you hit that elite status in college football, and especially with the success that they've seen over the past 3 to 4 years, it's gonna be tough to not have good talent replace guys that are leaving. It just worries me when we get into that Final Four scenario and you're talking about the elite of the elite in college football.
Yeah, but new stars are going to step up. I don't know if it's Xavier Thomas or Logan Rudolph or Tyler Davis, but these young players, and we're going to see, we could see another equally talented defensive line in, a couple of years as these guys mature. Maybe no one's picked as high as Cleveland Farrell was ridiculously picked by the Raiders, but we're talking about some very, very, very talented, just inexperienced players on the defensive line right now. They're super young, aside from the grad transfer, Pickney. Yeah, Niles Pickney. Super young. So all that's going to come. That's all going to come in time. You have solid linebackers. You have the defensive backfield that I've already talked about, with A.J. Terrell and with Isaiah Simmons. I don't know whether they're going to play him as strong safety or they're going to play him at linebacker. Whatever. This guy is incredibly talented. There's more than enough talent on this roster to go head to head with Alabama. And, that is not something I am saying should be taken lightly, will be taken lightly. Alabama's always incredible. They're always talented. And they're another team that is going to score the heck out of the football. I just think at the end of the day, Clemson's a more balanced team than they are.
It very well could be the case, Chris, but I really, I think that, when you talk about that Final Four and the pressure in there and the pressure to repeat, bringing in guys who have never been there, or if they've been there, it's been mostly watching on the sidelines. It's tough to replicate the efforts of those guys last year. Obviously, Dexter Lawrence had the PED issue, so he missed those playoff games. But I mean, you can't account for guys to make such an impact in their first time on the biggest of all stages.
No one's won the national championship other than Clemson or Alabama since 2014. What are the odds that we don't see a Clemson-Alabama national championship?
Probably, slim to none. I don't want it to happen, and I don't think Clemson can make it back there, but I'm also not an unrealistic person where those two teams seem to always just find each other when it comes to early January college football.
It's like serendipity that they just end up together at the end. And I am, of course, talking about the John Cusack, Kate Beckinsale vehicle that was wildly underrated by audiences. But who has the chance to sneak into this? Georgia, good defense, great running back. I don't know about Jake Fromm. Oklahoma, do they? Who is filling in for Kyler? Who is what can we expect from a Jalen Hurts or something like that? What Ohio State are we going to see? This team seems like it's not only different year to year, but vastly different week to week. And LSU, Michigan, Florida, Notre Dame, Texas. I don't feel good about any of these guys. It really does feel like Clemson and Alabama are not just on a tier by themselves, but maybe a couple of tiers above anyone else.
I think Jalen Hurts doesn't get enough respect for all he accomplished at Alabama as far as, obviously, again, we talked about it earlier when we were talking about Tua playing with the best of the best talent out there. But Jalen Hurts was able to get things done when he had to. You talk about last year's SEC championship game and the way that he was able to come back and replace Tua, sort of that weird, exact same scenario from the national championship the year prior, and come back and save Alabama's season. And I just think with Lincoln Riley calling the plays and the way he's worked with quarterbacks, especially the most evident Baker Mayfield and Kyler Murray, I think we might be able to unlock a little bit more. Now, obviously, Hurts may not be as talented from an arm perspective as those guys, but I think with the right tweaks, he can certainly make it work, and it makes Oklahoma considerably better. Now, they have to actually play defense. Therein lies the problem when you talk about, going up against some of these SEC powerhouses and especially Clemson. But I think they're a team that you can certainly watch to make yet another appearance in the college football playoff.
Yeah, my issue with Hurts is he's not a particularly gifted thrower of the football, and you can run all you want, and at the college level, I suppose that can be reasonably successful. But I don't think
it's the issue with college football in general. Like, Jalen Hurts would still be at Alabama if there wasn't the pressure on Tua to get out there and play right away because he was such a high recruit and he's at Alabama.
Jalen Hurts would still be at Alabama if he did not falter at the end of that national championship game to have only to be replaced by and saved by Tua.
Yeah, but there was also stories then that there was whispers of Tua potentially looking to transfer because he wasn't playing and things like that. So it's all college football and the quarterback position in general is so weird, and these guys come in as high recruits expecting to play, but if there's an upperclassman there, especially an accomplished one like Hurts was at that time, it's really kind of hard to say anything, to be like, yeah, we're going to bench this guy for some unknown freshman guy because he's a 5-star recruit.
Tell that to Tate Martell.
Listen, he's one of the prime examples.
Well, and, Justin Fields went through something very similar, too. Justin Fields should be the quarterback at Penn State this year had he just honored his commitment. But instead, playing...
Sean Clifford couldn't be happier.
I don't.
It's going to be such a long season. And honestly, I'm not, even though as an alumnus of Penn State, I am not the diehard Nittany Lion fan. You're not going to find me out there tailgating games anytime soon in Happy Valley. So I don't really necessarily care if they're bad or not, but it is disappointing to say the least to see that. By
the way, speaking of of Tua, we had an entire group of football fans have to learn how to say Tagovailoa. Well, we've got a guy coming into Clemson next year who there's going to be some learning on how to say his last name. The top quarterback prospect in high school football this year is a gentleman by the name of, and I could well be getting this wrong, DJ Uig. How would we say this? Uigalea? Yeah, it's rough. Uiagalelei.
So when does he start over Trevor Lawrence next year?
Well, I would assume that they'll redshirt him, and then he'll be a redshirt freshman after Trevor Lawrence is the number 1 pick in the draft in 2021 to the Indianapolis Colts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, see, God, back to the Colts. Chad Kelly, apparently, that's going to be their future, Chris. I don't know what to tell you.
Well, he's a scumbag. So that's going to be it for this week's episode.
Not debatable.
That is a 4th win for me on this episode. That's going to be it for this week's episode of You're Wrong and Here's Why. I am going to get to watch Clemson kick off their national championship campaign in this game against Tech, which just started. For Greg Kern, I'm Chris Horwedel. Thanks for listening. We'll see you back here next week.